Hello, lovely people. Welcome to Ari Talks About Music. I'm Ari, and today I'll be reviewing the new Spiritbox album, Tsunami Sea. Tsunami Sea is the second album by the Canadian metalcore band Spiritbox, and really is an album that sees them slightly departing from the more pure metalcore sound of their debut album, Eternal Blue, in 2021, and really taking a very wide range of influences, all the way from pop to even incorporating some elements of much heavier death metal into the album as well. Morgana opens the album with a really nice guitar riff and super aggressive vocals. The song manages to keep itself interesting and diverse, with slightly softer moments also sprinkled in there, and an absolutely beautiful and very theatrical outro. And the track as a whole actually reminds me a lot of Gojira's Ocean Planet being the opening track on their album from Master Sirius. Just the general vibe, and particularly also the vocal harmonies, also reminding me a lot of that song. The transition into the following track, Black Rainbow, sounds really good, which is unfortunate because the song as a whole is definitely slightly more on the generic side. The robotic sound effects on the vocals also just sound really out of place and don't suit the track at all, as well as the vocal harmonies during the chorus just feeling needlessly dissonant. The guitar playing, however, is still top-notch on this track, and despite a lot of the vocals being just not that great, there is still a lot of passion in them, which is good to hear. Perfect Soul shows off some much softer vocals, which even layered with the still very aggressive guitar and drum playing actually sound surprisingly good, with it reminding me of a lot of the moments on their debut album, which is one of the things that I think makes it such a great album to begin with. Although I do find that a lot of the vocal harmonies and just the chorus in general is actually quite generic, and the way the song fades out at the end to just the last few seconds being purely the isolated vocals is also quite a predictable cliche in my opinion. Keep Sweet starts off very soft during the verse, however out of nowhere just hits you in the face with a beautiful, passionate and really thunderous chorus, with just every instrument and every aspect of it really coming together with so much passion and aggression. And once again, I think that the much softer vocals with the aggressive instrumentation does sound really good, and the guitar riff with the particularly heavy reverb during the outro also sounds amazing. Soft Spine is a much more classic metalcore sounding song with small elements of nu metal in there as well, which actually surprisingly works quite well. And the very bleak and blunt vocals sound really unique and very different to the much more melodic vocals on the rest of the album. And as much as I do appreciate this song's attempt at so much more aggression, and really just feels like one of the loudest and wildest songs on the album, I do find that it does just sound a little bit out of place, not really fitting in with the flow of the whole album that well, with there being very little else on the album that really sounds that much like it. Title track Tsunami Sea has absolutely fantastic drumming, some of the best on the album, and the multiple layers of guitar work that build throughout the track also sound amazing. The slight return to the softer vocals is quite nice, although I think on this track in particular they do lack a lot of the passion that they do on the rest of the album, especially coming off of the previous track where they are the most aggressive we've heard yet, although like I did say, that song is very out of place, with quite a harsh transition both in and out of it. Haven with Two Faces does have a very unsuspecting start and slowly starts to build throughout the intro of the track, and by the time you get to the chorus it's just straight back to the passion and aggression of the rest of the album. But I think that where this song really shines is definitely in its second half, as it goes for this epic climax that just keeps building and building and feels like it's never going to end. Because on the whole, this part I really think shows off some of the best guitar playing and the best vocals on the album, with the vocals in particular just being so beautiful and even almost devastating in a way. No Loss, No Love I think is the only other track that can really be compared to Soft Spine, which I mentioned earlier, being absolutely unhinged and just really getting straight to the point without teasing or building in any way. It has slight moments throughout the track where it does fade out that really just do an amazing job at building tension, and I really think that they just make the more explosive and loud moments that much better. And I think the tracks like this is something that this album could actually really do with a lot more of. And moving on to the final leg of tracks here, I really don't think that this album actually ends the strongest at all, with the first of the three tracks being Crystal Roses, which shows off some really weird effects on the vocals, along with the more pop and electronic leaning sound, which was a huge and unnecessary tone shift. And I think in general that a metal band experimenting with pop is something that notoriously never really goes well, I think with metal more than any other genre, and I really think that this particular track is no exception to that rule, with the pop sound really just not matching Spiritbox's signature sound at all. Ride the Wave does have a really beautiful and passionate chorus, especially with the wall of sound that's created with how much reverb is used on the guitar. However, I think outside of that this track in general is very generic, and the much more stripped back sound during the verses I think creates a very harsh contrast with the chorus on this track, making it just just feel really messy overall. And then the closing track, Deep End, does work quite well as the closing track, with the song just having a very last song on the album kind of feel to it. However, that doesn't take away from the fact that it almost works too well as the closing track to the point where it does feel quite generic and predictable. And in general, I think this track just feels like a much more watered down version of Spiritbox's sound, and really just takes away the passion and the brutality that makes their sound and metal as a genre so great to begin with. And so overall, I really can't say that this album really came close to meeting my expectations. I absolutely loved their debut album Eternal Blue in 2021, so needless to say, the expectations for this album were quite high, but there really still was potential for this album, with so many of the tracks still being amazing, or at least showing off some cool ideas. But it really feels like that you're just left with this album which for the first half is okay and has a lot of great moments, but is still a bit inconsistent. And then of course that leg of 3 tracks towards the end just drags it down by so much, which is a real shame. And so I'll be giving this album a 5 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching this review. Please be sure to listen to this album yourself and tell me your thoughts below. Please leave a like if you liked the video, and please leave a dislike if you didn't like the video, and remember to stay hydrated.